Welcome, welcome. How's it going, Brandon?
Hey Eric, man, how's it going?
Doing pretty well. So thanks for coming on the SwannRacing.com podcast. I think this is going to be number 44 or 45.
Okay,
And
cool.
today I have Brandon Cretu, and you're a motorcycle racer. You're a U.S. distributor of Ovale motorcycles, among many other things, I'm sure. So introduce yourself to people and tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it. Branding Cretu, we started we started Rise Moto back in 2018, May of 2018, and we import Ovale motorcycles into the U.S. And among some other things we're starting to get involved in, we're just kind of trying to expand the business a little bit beyond Ovale, but that was kind of the main, the original idea behind it when we started to get involved with it was, bring over these bikes and try to, I don't know, breathe some new life into the sport here. And yeah, so far it's been a journey and a difficult one at times, but it's been pretty good so far. And I think things are looking positive in the U.S. as far as racing is concerned, and it's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, the Moto America series is really picking up with their viewership, and the mini series is coming, and that's great now. That's a new thing. So that's expanding a lot. People used to be only on 50 cc's, CRF 50s, and that's great. That's fine too. But the Ovales offer something a little different. Isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I think the days of like people thinking, oh well, we can just go out and ride. I think the CR50, like you said, is a great bike for a kid to start on. Like for sure, I still, even people that reach out to me, and say, oh, what, my kid's 4 or 5, what should I start on? And Ovale is obviously not the answer there, so I don't try to sell people a bike that isn't right for them. I think those are still great for kids to learn on. But there comes a time when, I think a bunch of other guys have made, actually Ben Speeds just recently made a post about it. Like if you want to go race motocross professional, like you don't get a TTR 125 and try to ride it around a motocross track.
Right.
You'll never learn how to really push a bike with your riding an improper bike, and these, kind of bridge that gap between, kids riding around on converted trail bikes and, kind of makeshift supermotos and putting them on a real motorcycle, a real road race bike. And I think it's going to pay dividends. It's a long-term project for us, where, we'll see eventually this, start to proliferate more and more kids on the bikes, and, hopefully, the grassroots racing, improves around the country where kids just have more tracks, more kart tracks they can go to, more organizations come up that they can race with. And we're hopeful that, the Moto America Mini Cup kind of helps, trickle that down a little bit, and people get, just kind of brings more awareness to it. And then hopefully people start that up.
It sounds like a very cost-effective way to get into racing. I mean, is this something you can take on regular big tracks, I guess you call them?
Yeah, you could. I mean, they do in Italy in their race series. They'll race them on kart tracks and they'll race them on some of the bigger tracks. You just change the gearing out on them, and you can do it. Now, that's not really where they shine. The bikes are made for kart tracks, for small tracks. But yeah, for sure, you can ride them on it. You could ride them on a big track, and kids do in Europe.
That's awesome. It's good to see that progression. And this is like something brand new. I don't think we've really had before. It's kind of like a new product segment for the US.
Yeah, no, I mean, back forever ago, you had like the metric kits, which were, close. The racing on kart tracks wasn't really as popular. That didn't start to become a thing until, maybe the past 10 years or so. But before that, kids took the metric kits to like big tracks, and they just raced them there. And, the kart track thing is only just like in Europe, it's been around for a long time. And that's actually one of the more popular ways for people to train in Europe, as opposed to training on big tracks, just because of cost and everything else. Like I think there's a common misconception that everyone thinks like, oh, if you're in Europe or wherever, like you're always training on big tracks and you're always riding big bikes like that. It's not the case. Like all these guys are always training on kart tracks or small tracks, just because the cost is lower, the risk of, damage to you and the bike is lower. It's just a more effective way to train and stay sharp for big bikes. So, we're starting to see that kind of get more popular here, especially with, the advent of bikes like these, where they're just like really fun to ride, and they're, cheap. I mean, when I say cheap, it's all relative. I get some flack whenever I say it because the bikes obviously they're not cheap bikes, but once you get them, the buy-in is a little high. But once you get them, like the cost to do it is obviously much lower than racing like any big bike for sure.
Even cheaper than like a 125.
Like a 125 like GP bike.
Yeah.
I've never raced one of those, so I honestly can't speak to it very much. I mean, I know you can't really buy them anymore, so like unless you're buying a used one, and that's the other thing. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I can go buy a Ninja 400, a used one for like 5 or 6 grand." I'm like, well, again, you're comparing a new bike to a used bike. It's not like a fair comparison, because there are Avalias on the market now, like used ones. You can find them for, if you can get lucky enough to find one, it's like 3,500 to 4 grand, or somewhere like anywhere from 3,500 bucks up to 5,000 for a used one, which then it starts to be a more apples to apples comparison of used bikes. So that's always been kind of a pet peeve of mine when people want to argue, oh, I can go buy this for less than an Avali. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's not the same. It's a used.
Yeah.
You're talking used bike versus a new bike, and it's not even it's not even the same type of bike. But yeah, I'm not too familiar. I wasn't racing when two strokes were really around and popular, so I don't know. Like, I know that they you had to rebuild top ends all the time and do all kinds of stuff with them. So how much cheaper is it? I don't really know.
So tell me about the maintenance of your bikes. Are they pretty sturdy?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think that the bikes themselves, I mean, they crash phenomenally well. Like, I think I've sold maybe 2 sets of fairings in the past 2.5, 3 years that we've been doing this.
Okay.
I don't even stock fairings because no one buys them because they just don't. It's really rare like anyone damages one to the point of like needing to replace it or needing to fix it even. So in that regard, the bikes hold up amazingly and they crash really well for what they are and how they look. Like, you'd think, oh, it's going to cost me a lot of money if I crash it. Well, no, it's usually just a foot peg or a handlebar, and that's really all you have to replace. As far as like the maintenance, I mean, they're super easy to maintain. You can take them anywhere. They don't need like anything special. They're super simple engines. Now they are, for what they are, they're small, like high performance engines. That's like you have a 110, which is drastically faster than any TTR 110 or CR1. Like, it's not even a comparison in terms of horsepower or anything they're putting out. So they say the top ends every 40 hours. The oil change every 10 hours. So the maintenance from the outside it's easy enough. It's simple. The one part on these engines, where particularly the 160 and 190, is their weak point. Like any motorcycle, like there's usually always a weakness or something that doesn't always hold up, even if you're Yamaha or Ducati or whatever. And that's the gearbox on the engine. So we always tell people when you're riding them, like, you have to use the clutch not only for downshifting but also for upshifting.
Okay.
And a lot of riders are used to riding like dirt bikes or even big bikes where you can, if you don't have a quick shifter on, you can just load the shifter short, release the throttle a little bit and pop it into gear. And you can do that on the Avalis, but it wears out the selector. So people start to lose like third gear all the time if they do that. And people always say, oh, well, the engines just aren't holding up. Well, no, it's not really because in Europe, people know that, yeah, you got to use the clutch, the clutch to get like a good shift. So they don't have many problems over there, honestly. And over here, everybody seems to have problems because everybody's used to riding these dirt bikes that you can just bang the transmission. You don't have to use the clutch to downshift half the time. Like, I have a TTR 125 flat track bike, and I mean, I can downshift without the clutch, So
Oh yeah, you could do it.
Yeah, not that it's good for it, but you can do it. And but these are even worse. Like you have to. It's like anything. You just have to know what you can and can't do on it and ride accordingly. Like, same way with like the new Triumphs and Moto 2. Like, I know that even those bikes, like Triumph tells riders not to over rev them on downshifts because they'll blow the engines. So it's the same thing. Like, you have a Moto 2 level bike that still people are being told, hey, you got to treat it this way to get longevity out of it. And these are the same way. You just have to ride them accordingly, and remember that the engines, for what they are, they're cheap. They're not really expensive engines, but they require some finessing in terms of how you ride them.
And what size tires do these have?
10-inch tires.
10-inch tires, front and rear. And are you going through tires like on the big bikes, or at least the 600s? I was doing 3 sets of tires or 3 tires a weekend, so 2 rears and a front for like wear up.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, you could probably, I mean, I think the kids at the Mini Cup are using a little bit more than like on average, but I mean, on average, like a set of tires, like the PMTs that come standard on them, I mean, they'll last kids anywhere from 10 to 20 hours of riding,
Okay,
which
so
is
quite a while.
a shit ton of riding. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like, I mean, that's on a Mini, that's a lot of riding, so, and a set of tires is like 200 some dollars, where as opposed to like $400 for a big bike.
Exactly.
I know that too, from my racing, like it's just astronomical what you spend on tires. So that's why I always, kind of joke, like if parents are getting into it and their kids really like into the racing and they love the sport, but then if they're kind of taken aback by the price of mini racing, like you might want to, stop while you're ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the cheap way to do it for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I've stopped motorcycle racing, unfortunately, just because of money. It's like so many other people,
Yeah.
and I've gotten into mountain bike racing in the meantime.
Oh yeah.
That's been a great challenge for myself and change, because those guys, they have a way better engine than I do, and I could never get my engine as good as theirs. But
Yeah, no, man, I'm a huge cyclist as well, mountain biker and road biker, and but I never got into it. I did like one race one time, and I did it with a bunch of friends, and the start of the race I like took off, and I was like got the whole shot, and I led for like I don't know how long, like maybe a half mile, but then I'd never done a race before, and I like bonked out like so like maybe like a third of the way in the race, I literally everybody just passed me. I was like in last by the by the third of the race I was in last.
Yeah, it's really different. You got to pace yourself. You can't just
Right.
go all out the whole time. So those guys do if you're conditioned for it, but most people aren't.
Yeah, no, I'm a fitness, do it for fitness and recreation. That's about it. I'm not really into the competition stuff anymore.
That's good. You're focusing on the business side of things, it seems like.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yep, I know how that goes. I've been doing about 1,000 miles of cycling and running for the past 8 years or so. But I'm not super competitive right now. I'm just trying to focus on my business, trying to focus on ericswanracing.com, and trying to just I sell things online. So kind of like
Right.
what you're
Okay.
doing, e-commerce, and just trying to get as many things online as I can from dropship vendors around the country, and
Right.
sell some products.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I mean yeah, it's been a journey starting this. I was, racing full time for a while, and then that all kind of fell apart due to some unfortunate circumstances, and then I was kind of figuring out what to do, and the volley thing kind of didn't really land in my lap. Like I learned about it, and then went over and met with them through a mutual friend who introduced me to the owner, and just kind of went from there, and somehow here I am. I never really thought it would go to this extent. Like we always talked about it, me and my business partner, my best friend that started the business with me, and it's just been it's been an interesting snowball of a journey for sure.
So tell me about how this business looks from the outside. Do you have like a dealership? Do you have a showroom with bikes everywhere, or is this out of your house for now?
No, I honestly just work out of my house because it's mainly like we obviously go to the Moto America events, and I usually pick like a few events every year where I like to go to. Now obviously after COVID happened, like that's changed drastically. Like before we would go to Coda for the MotoGP round, and that was like, I mean, a killer event for us. Like I remember the first year, 2019, we were there, and it was just we had people at our booth from 8 in the morning until like 7:30 at night. Like
Wow.
we had no time to even talk to everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's such a shame that things are the way they are right now, because like, I know we're not the only ones that were affected by that, but missing out on stuff like that, it's a big thing to miss out on. But yeah, we mainly ship the bikes directly to the customers because, I've found through figuring out like looking at it from different cost perspectives, is it's actually more cost effective for the customer if they have the bike built at the factory and then it's shipped directly to their house via DHL Air. Because like right now, like for example, the cost for me to ship a bike from the factory to a customer's address is anywhere from $900 to like $1,100.
Oh, geez.
Whereas if I ship it to America, it has to come, and then it would come on a container. If I got like, I don't know, like 40 bikes in a container, brought them here, it would cost me about like, I don't know, $100 a bike or something like that.
Okay.
And then when they're shipped from, say, I have a warehouse here that holds 40 bikes, then I'm paying rent on a big warehouse to hold all those bikes. And then to ship a bike from a warehouse to any, like California, for example, you're talking $600 to $800 domestic shipping.
Yeah.
So like it all just comes out to a wash. And this allows it, when they're built at the factory, they can like get stuff installed at the factory for free. Like they can get the right spring rates, they can get a slipper clutch, they can get all the stuff, and they can get custom paint work, custom graphics, whatever they want. And it's all done at the factory when they build the bike. So really it's like, if you had to do that here, like I'd have to hire someone to install all that stuff, which would add more cost onto the cost of the bike. So a lot of people like, I want to come see one first. I want to, do you have dealers? Even dealers, like we have a few across the country, but even that I found it's like not really advantageous. Like it's not bad to have people out there promoting your brand, obviously, but our margins aren't really good enough where we can afford to split the margin and still reinvest money in the sport, So that's like, it's always like there's a trade-off there, because I know if I give up my margin, then the dealer that's selling the bike probably not going to put that money that he made off the little money he made. He's not going to go back and say, okay, well, I'm going to go and sponsor the local race organization, So that's my big focus is like, obviously I need to, attempt to earn a living. And also I want to reinvest money back in the sport and, do what we've been doing and growing it. And that takes, it takes money. So obviously we have to, keep the business, somewhat closed a little bit and make sure that we can afford to do all that stuff. But that's why one way I kind of help get bikes out there for people to see is I work with pretty much every mini organization in the country. And we usually do like at least one loaner bike for every organization.
Okay.
So basically like every mini organization around the country will have something that if people are like in that general area, or if people already race with them, they can see it in person, they can demo it, they can rent it for the day.
Yeah.
Do whatever they want. I let all the mini orgs, manage it themselves, and then we sell those demo bikes off every year.
That's awesome. I mean, you got to pick and choose what you want to do. You can't do everything.
Right. Yeah. No, it's tough, man. I want to do everything. So I try. Like that's probably why I haven't made any money in the past 3 years, because I'm always trying to like just keep it rolling and build it faster. Because I think with this, when we started this, I just knew like if I tried to slow roll it, it would never take foot here. It would never really kind of catch people. So that's why we just kind of went like really hard with it, because we knew that this would be a tough market, only because people are so used to what they're used to. Everybody's used to the dirt bikes and all this supermotos and all this stuff. This is very new for the US, and people are like embracing it now with the Moto America stuff and the new bike, the new GP2 that came out, which is geared more towards adults. So that's a 12-inch wheel bike, and it's a little bit bigger, more comfortable for adults. And we tested. We had 2 out in California that we tested back in early February, and yeah, I mean the bike is like it's out of this world phenomenal. Like it's what everybody kind of wanted. Like all the adults that got the original Avali.
Yeah.
And they're all like, they love everyone that rides it loved it. But after a while, you usually rode it for as long as you could ride it until you're like, oh yeah, it's starting to feel a little cramped or whatever. And it had like some different handling characteristics that were good. But it like had some twitchiness about it on the 190. That is now the GP2 kind of just solved every complaint, for lack of a better word, that people had about the old bike. And it's a phenomenal bike. And we've taken a ton of pre-orders. I think Avali's taken probably over 300 orders around 300 to 400 orders around the world, and no one's ever seen the bike, or no one's ever rode it. People have seen the videos we posted, but we were the first ones to actually get bikes to test and ride.
That's awesome. And there's a couple different models. You have the 110, the 160 with the 190. I think there's a 212.
The 212 is no longer available, but that was basically just a 190 with a big bore kit.
Okay.
So you can still buy the big bore kit. Honestly, I don't think they're really, they're a little bit better. It's mostly like low end torque. That's all it does for you. It's not like that much better. But so there's the GP zeros with the 10-inch wheels. It's the 110, 160, 190. and then the GP2 is only available in the 190, and that has 12-inch wheels.
Okay. Get better rolling resistance over things, get over rocks and things better with the bigger wheels.
Yeah, and it's honestly just it just mellowed out the whole handling of the bike. It just made the bike it just feels more like a big bike but a mini. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like if you've ever ridden a Navale, it's very like the old ones felt like that, but the new one is like, it just feels like, yeah, I mean, it's just super fun to ride. Everybody that rode it at our test, we had like a bunch of editors out there from magazines like Rennie Skaysbrook, Michael Gilbert, Troy Sihan, Jeremy Toy, and then Sean Dillon Kelly was out there. He tested on them. Max Toth, like a bunch of riders came out, and I mean, everybody that rode it was like, yeah, this is they just loved it. So
I've seen MotoGP riders on it. Danilo Petrucci.
Yeah, all the guys have them. Jack Miller just got like 3 of the new GP2s. We work with Aleix Santa Cruz, who's the team trainer for Factory Yamaha, but he also he trains like Jack Miller, Marcel Schroeder, Garrett Gerloff. He trains all these guys, and he has 5 of the new GP2s now. They just got delivered the other day, so they use them for like training camps. He does everything from motocross. He's a kind of like the perfect model of how you properly train like a world-class road racer, because he's all about like the cross training. Like they get on the minis for a couple of days, then they'll do motocross, then they'll do flat track, then they're up in the mountains right now doing cross country skiing. Like they do everything, just always cross training, learning different muscle memories and skills.
And so if someone was asking, what's the difference between a 50 and your bike, what makes it so much better?
I mean, everything. It's like, it's not even like a comparison, like a CRF 50 or whatever. Like it's not, I mean, it's just a totally different thing. You know what I mean? It's not even really a comparison. I mean, it's a proper road race bike. The 50s are fun if you want to, I know you guys have a pretty popular indoors winter riding thing up in Michigan area. And I know like a lot of guys ride 50s there. Well, like I said, they're fun. They are what they are, but they're still, it's not a road race bike, so it's just the whole dynamic of, braking and handling and everything about it's different.
Suspension, the frame, the chassis is actually more pliable, and it works like it's not a dirt bike. It's a different category.
Right. Like, so if I was going to go, like, for example, if you ride a, TTR, like a lot of the TTR 125 is I use that as an example because it's a really popular bike in the mini racing world. Like a lot of adults ride them, even kids were getting on them for a long time. And, it's just not, if you're going to go race flat track, they build into decent flat track bikes, but like if you would never take a sport bike and turn it into a flat track bike. You know what I mean? So like, why are people taking trail bikes and turning them into road race bikes? Like that's not what they are, So, to try to say, oh, well, this is good. It's just that's not what, if we ever want to have like just a world class level of like competition and racing here and riders, like we have to change the mindset. And, hopefully this kind of leads to that.
I think people are just using the cheapest tool because that's the cheapest tool, but not the best tool that's available.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I understand that, obviously like, cost is always a concern. And, but at the end of the day, I think the Avales aren't, I think what you're getting out of it is they aren't that expensive in my opinion. Like I think, they're, especially like if your kid's 6 years old, for example, and you would go out and buy an Avale 110 4-speed, like that kid can ride that same bike until he's 14 years old because you can swap in a 160 engine.
Yeah. So, and even later because adults are riding those, maybe he'll move up to a 190. But
he can keep that for, he or she could keep that for years and ride it. So it depends when you get into it. Like if you get them into it young, then, they have one bike they can ride for, quite a long time. And then eventually they can step up to a 190, get another 190 or step up to that. So, I think in the grand scheme of things, I really don't think they're that expensive for what they are. I think you're getting a lot for your money, and you're getting to be involved with, something that gives them more opportunity, like a kid, a little bit more opportunity to learn and, compete at a higher level and just, and at the end of the day, help grow the sport. Because let's face it, like if there would never be a Moto America Mini Cup or any kind of like, right now Dorna just partnered with Ovali, and Ovali is the official bike for the Mini GP World Series. And that would have never happened with TTR 125s.
Sure.
Like, because nobody, like I said, I have TTR 125s. I love them. They're amazing bikes for flat track or for other things, but no one wants to see a bunch of kids racing around a kart track on dirt bikes. That's just not, I always tell people it's not like sexy, it's not like interesting to watch. Where if you see a bunch of kids on Ovali's, like when we were at like all the races we were at this past year, like Road America was a great one for the Mini Cup, because it was just tons of fans there and everybody was coming up. They were like, this is awesome. Like, this is exactly what we need here. And like everybody, I mean, there was no shortage of people coming up to us and saying that. So, if there were a bunch of kids out there on dirt bikes, I can assure you nobody would have done that. They would have been like, they would have watched it for a little bit, but then been like, whatever. Like, it's not interesting. It's just
totally different. They'd never seen little kids like that on road race bikes before.
Right. So,
and when they first starting out, I think one of your bikes is automatic. Is that right?
Yeah. So they do have a 110 automatic, which is popular in Europe. It's not really taken off here in America. Like, we've sold a few. It is a good starter bike for kids. And that's the same way. Like, if you start out with a 110 automatic, you can go up to a 110 4-speed, 160 with the same chassis. So it is like, I think it's a really good platform because you're investing in it once, but then you can like upgrade it,
Yeah.
Now the 110 automatics are popular like in Europe also at like kart tracks. Like, kart tracks will have them for rent, which like in America, that's like unheard of, like renting bikes at a kart track. Now we've tried to go down that road with a few places where there's one in Texas. Actually, I have a dealer in Texas, one of the few, and they have a track at their dealership, actually, 11 Motorsports, and they have a couple 110 automatics that they rent out and they do days like that with. And I personally think the 110 automatics are just like so much fun to ride but they're only fun if you have a bunch of people on if you have a bunch of people on them.
Yeah.
If you're trying to like ride them with other bikes, they suck because they're not like anywhere remotely competitive.
Right.
But if you have like a bunch of, like if I was on a track and we had 6 other friends with 110 automatics, it'd be so much fun.
I feel like you should try to get someone to sell all these bikes as fleets to kart tracks. Like, you could tell.
We've tried to do that. Yeah, it's tough because America is not like a motorcycle centric society. So like when you go to most kart tracks, I mean, they don't even know the first thing about motorcycles, like that, like much less, I'm going to buy bikes to rent here. You know what I mean? And there's a whole thing of like, since most people aren't really exposed to motorcycles in the US like they are in Italy or anywhere else, where even people even at least know how to ride a scooter. So you could go to any track in Italy and like most people can at least ride a scooter, and you can get on a 110 automatic and fumble your way around and have some fun. Where in America, like, it's such a huge liability concern, and everybody's like, everybody sues everybody for everything here in this country. So, I think that's a big turn off for most people. When I have had that conversation with kart tracks, and a few of them, there's some discussions here and there, but most of them are, they just don't know motorcycles, so they don't even want to go down that road.
I feel like the only ones that might be interested are already like United States Pro Kart Series tracks, like Pittsburgh International Race Complex. That's a US kart track. Yeah.
I mean, we go there obviously for the Mini Cup, and that's a phenomenal kart track. Yeah, I've never talked to them about, buying. I know the owners there. I've never talked to them about buying bikes. Not sure if they would get into that or not, but yeah, it's a good, I think it's a good thing to open up. It's just, I think it's tough for a kart track business because they do really well with karts. Karts are always like, you can rent kart to anybody,
Right.
So that's an easy, or the ROI is pretty easy to figure out. Whereas the bikes, it's a little bit like, oh, I don't know, like how much are we really gonna be able to do with this? Yeah.
It's an unknown.
Yeah. And if you have someone show up who has zero experience, like, what do? Do you turn them away? Is someone there to kind of show them how to do it? Like, that's a tough one, You
just need on-hand lessons at all times.
Right. Yeah. And it just adds more cost to the overall thing. So it's a tough one. I get it. Like, I've had that conversation, and it's a tough sell, but hopefully eventually we can go down that road here in this country. Or
yeah, for sure.
At least some parts of it, anyways.
Well, I hope you do, because I'd love to go to a place and just ride their bikes and have a blast with it. Because there would be so many of my friends who would just love to do that.
Yeah, and honestly, the 110 Max, I mean, they're like bulletproof because there is no clutch, there's no gears. So I mean, there's nothing you can really break on them, you know. So like even for like the people riding them, it's great because you can just ride the hell out of them. The kart track, it's great because the maintenance costs are like super low. You just tires and oil,
Right.
and, occasional crash damage. But yeah, I mean they're really great platforms.
And some people are opting for full leathers, and some people are opting for like a motocross gear on kart tracks.
Yeah, and I mean, on the volleys in America, anyways, it's all pretty much leathers. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare I see anybody in like a motocross gear. I mean, you do see occasionally like supermoto guys wear like motocross gear on kart tracks, but yeah, I mean, even when I was like, I've ridden some supermoto before. I always wore leathers. If you're on like a proper kart track, because if you crash on asphalt with just motocross gear on, I mean, you tear everything up. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, generally, it's pretty much only leathers. Yeah.
Yeah, the ground hurts.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, if you wear motocross gear, then you're having to add all the pads underneath anyways. So it's like, why not just put on some leathers?
Yeah. And we'll talk about your distinguished racing career for a second. You did some international races that are pretty famous.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of everything. I've been pretty fortunate with what I got to do. I started off just normal club racing, like most people here, and I saw that my big history, most people know, is the TT. When I raced the TT, I saw that one day. Actually, I was recovering from an injury, and I just saw it and became like obsessed with it. And I said I'm going to do that one day, and nobody believed me. Everybody said you'll never do that. And 3 years later, I started my first TT. So I'm kind of like a perfect example of someone who can. I didn't come from a racing family. I didn't come from money or anything, and I was able to kind of make it happen. So it's a good example of like, if you really want to do something, you can do it. So I raced the TT for 7 years. Raced Macau for 4 years. Did the Northwest 200 twice, the Ulster Grand Prix twice, and then after I quit racing the roads, I did a season of Moto America, and that's when I had a really fortunate opportunity to race full time for a while, and I did Moto America for a season, which was a disaster of a season. It didn't really go that well. And then I did World Endurance for like a season and a half to 2 seasons. I did one full season and a couple races here and there, and that was really good. That was like, besides the TT, that was probably like my favorite years of racing I ever had. It was just like just such a cool paddock.
Yeah.
Really cool experience getting to do like Le Mans 24-hour and Suzuka and all that. Like, it was just it was a dream come true for sure.
It feels like it's kind of like the pinnacle, because you have all these people who are maybe retired professionals who are
Yeah.
very, very talented with lots of money sometimes. And it's the best of the best. And who can do it for the longest period of time without crashing
Oh yeah,
at the
no,
fastest pace,
yeah, and it's unbelievable, man. The level that like the top guys that race World Endurance, like the level that they ride at for as long as they do it for, like, I'm always like I'm blown away,
Yeah.
because they're on like lap record pace, every stint for 24, at the Le Mans, like 24 hours at night. Like Sheridan Moraes, he's a good friend of mine, and I remember like every year at Le Mans, like he would be usually like the fastest rider at night, and like he would always set like usually, I think most times he would always set his best lap of the entire race like at like 3 a.m, and I'm like, every time I've done a world endurance race, anytime like the light goes down, like I would always like wind up being like 2 seconds slower, because
Really?
I just like
Yeah.
I've struggled to like adapt to the nighttime, like in terms of my pace, like just with seeing your markers and just everything. Like, it always made me slow down.
Yeah.
So I was always really impressed by the riders who were able to like run at that pace like all throughout the night.
It's almost like they only look at certain spots. They don't focus on anything else but
Oh
those
yeah.
those few spots, right?
And that's what makes the difference between me and someone like that. They're
Yeah.
they're just another level. They're not. That's why they're professionals for a lifetime, and they do what they do. So
Yeah. And it's always humbling to hear, like, even you saying, "Oh, there's another level of guys, ahead of me that you can't touch." It's
oh no,
always
yeah.
steps.
Oh yeah, and they're yeah, it's just crazy. And like I said, I'm like at the bottom, that level. I'm at the bottom, So it's like there was guys, even the guys on the other, privateer teams were just, really talented guys. So then when, you look at, when I was at Suzuka, I got to ride, I would say I got to ride, I got to share the track with, like Jack Miller and Alex Lowe's and all these riders.
Johnny Ray.
Yeah, Johnny Ray was like all these riders. It's just some, so when they go by you, like like endurance racing, you just learn so much because like Suzuka was a great example. Like that's one race where I like had like kind of a breakthrough in my riding where I just felt like I really like things really clicked for me and like how to push, really push a bike. And I remember like just being passed by these guys, like every lap I'd be passed by some other world-class rider. So you'd like every turn you're being passed someone where you can learn something,
Yeah.
So you do that for 8 hours, or I mean, not 8, like I did like, I think I had 3 stints when I raced Suzuka. And yeah, I mean, it's just, you learn so much, and then you can't ever replace that kind of, first, front seat learning, it's like, it can't be done.
Yeah. For people who don't race or don't ride on the track very often, anytime you're behind someone who's an expert or better than you, you can learn from them. You can watch them right in front of you,
Right.
see what they're doing, seeing their line choice, their body position, their braking points. All these things are helpful things to pick up on. And when you got the best in the world going by you all day, it kind of stinks sometimes. And sometimes I'm sure it's hard to pick your line because like I got 4 guys coming by me, you can hear them in the back of you. You don't want to hold them up.
Yeah, I mean, I never had that with those guys. I mean, it was like just such a non-issue because you knew like they would just pass you in places you were like, I don't even know how you did that. So like you just had to be very like comfortable with like, okay, like I'm out here with these guys. I know they're gonna pass me like wherever they see a safe. I mean, to them it's safe. For me, occasionally it was I'll get spooked because I'm like, I don't even know how you made that happen. But yeah, I mean, for sure, like you just, there's always something to learn. So if you ever go to the track and you're not there like trying to, someone passes you, if you're shaking your head, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be like, okay, what are they doing that I'm not doing? What can I learn right now in this split second? What can I learn?
Yeah. And I guess what would you say to newer racers or track day riders who are looking to go racing, who are scared of people whizzing by them like that?
Yeah, I think you just have to get really, it's all about like confidence and being comfortable and relaxed. I think that's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things I ever learned about like riding a motorcycle is the more relaxed you are, the better you'll be riding, the less tired you'll get and the faster you'll go. If you're out there fighting all the time and you're, just like, gripping the handlebars really tightly and you're always like, the more relaxed you are, the better rider you'll be like tenfold. So that's my biggest advice is just go out there, like relax. And I think one important thing is to also like cross train. Like if you really want to take like your riding seriously, you got to cross train on anything 2 wheels, like bicycles, flat track, motocross, whatever you can be comfortable with is what you should be out there trying because, it all translates. And the more comfortable you are on a motorcycle, the more comfortable you'll be with like people, passing you. And then, cause you won't be worried about like, oh, will I be able to control this? If like, if I get spooked, I'm not going to just grab my brake or, do something, silly. I'm going to know that I just have to, maintain my line, stay calm and just keep riding.
I guess the fear comes from not knowing
Right.
what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, none of us know what's going to happen. So,
You just take what gets thrown at you and hopefully you get through it.
Right.
So anything you wanted to talk about today? Anything on your mind?
No, I just wanted to, kind of plug the Moto America, the mini cup, where we expanded it to 5 rounds this year. So we have Road America, the Ridge, 4 rounds. Sorry, Moto America, the Ridge, Pittsburgh, and Barber.
Okay.
With them, and that's part of the new. Well, it's not official yet, but so Dorna just recently announced the new FIM Mini GP World Series, which all of the countries around the world who want to be a part of it still have to go through an application process. We're pretty confident that the Mini Cup will be in part of this program, but basically it's focused on the 160 class. So the top riders from the countries around the world that are chosen to be part of this program in their respective championships, in their country. We're not sure if it'll be just the winner or the top 2 or 3 yet, but the top rider or riders will get to go to a final event alongside MotoGP at Valencia at the end of the year.
Awesome.
It'll be at like the Valencia kart track, like in front of MotoGP, in front of the world, and the kids will get to do a race there on the Avalis, and then the winner or the top riders from that will then get a chance to race in the following year in their like respective talent cup. Whether it's the European Talent Cup, Northern Talent Cup, Asia Talent Cup, or British Talent Cup.
All right.
Then
Sounds
hopefully in
like
America we can start a American Talent Cup, because the current the current format with the Junior Cup, in my opinion, is kind of a silly format, because I know what some of these kids are having to parents are having to pay for their kids' bikes for the Junior Cup to race like a street bike, and that's like it's like a commuter bike. It's not a proper bike. I know some of these 400s are costing like $20,000 to $25,000 for Moto America, and that's crazy to me. So hopefully we can hopefully we can see maybe some change there, and start like a proper talent cup. We import the new Aprilia RS250 SP. We also import that, which is Avali actually builds them for Aprilia.
okay.
So we're hoping, we're really trying to start something with those bikes and start like a proper talent cup, American Talent Cup for kids in America.
And you think being on a Aprilia RS250 would be a better chassis and a learning platform than like a Ninja 400?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, they're like, everybody's ridden it. I mean, they're like a proper chassis, a proper bike.
Yeah.
Are they a RS250 or NSF 250? No, they're not that level. They're like, maybe a step down from like an RS250, which is, again, like that is the bike, for racing, like a talent cup type of format. But those bikes are obviously a lot more expensive, and the maintenance schedules are a lot higher. So the RS250 is a lot cheaper. They start at like around 13 grand, like all in.
Yeah.
And that gets, I mean, that's ready to go. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't need suspension. You don't need it. You don't need anything. It's all ready to go. And, the maintenance schedules are way lower. The engine, like even a brand new engine is only like $1,800. So,
Yeah.
it's just super affordable for what it is compared to, these 400s and 300s, which, get pretty pricey by the time you buy and build them. So yeah, we're hopeful that we can do something there. We'll see where it goes.
Do you expect to have any sort of competition from Kawasaki, Honda, Yamaha, Ducati, Aprilia with these type of bikes in this CC range?
I mean, you never know. I mean, I'm not any of these companies. I mean, obviously Honda has the NSF 100 that they still make in Japan. I think you can still get one there. But they're quite expensive, and for what they are, they're not like as, for the price, they're not, there's comparison really isn't there with Avali, but, and with the new Dorna partnership, like Dorna has selected Avali as the bike for their, for the MiniGP World Championship. So that kind of does give us some, solid ground for a while in terms of like competition. Obviously you never know what people are doing. There are some manufacturers out there that like the ones you mentioned, I don't have too much of a concern about, but there's one out there that I'm always like, oh, if they get involved, we'll see. But, right now we have a good thing going, and, Volley puts a lot back into the sport, which I think, is something to be said for what we do, with, Italy and us here. Like we do a lot to promote and help the sport grow. So I think a lot of people will recognize that, and that helps us, and that even other manufacturers, like I've been approached at Moto Americans by guys, that work for Yamaha or Kawasaki, and they all love what we're doing.
Yeah, that's good.
They don't look at it as like, hey, we need to figure out how to fight you guys. Like they look at it more of like, at least from my experience so far, they've always been like, this is really good for the sport and good to get new people riding.
Yeah, well, I would think that it'd be a benefit if Yamaha got into it, or like I would think competition would be a good thing, because they're saying, oh, look, there's a market here.
It is and it is. I mean, right now it's kind of a bad thing because there isn't enough market to go around, at least in America. Anyways, this is like a small, like mini racing. Kids getting involved in road racing is still very small. Whereas like you have like kids motocross, which is huge in America. So for sure you can have like good competition with all the various options out there. Now, obviously KTM and Husqvarna are like destroying everybody in that market for sure. But, I think the market's small right now, so they almost need it to like, okay, we need to like build this before everyone's trying to pick at every little piece of the market. And then, if you do that too much, then you won't have there's no money to go around to reinvest in it and grow it. So it's like there's a fine line between competition, breeding excellence, as they would say, and competition kind of destroying what opportunities there were.
Right. Yeah, you
So
can have too many of a good thing, right? Like right now with the pandemic, all these restaurants are closing. Maybe there were too many restaurants before, so maybe we're going to hit the equilibrium, whatever that number is.
Yeah, maybe that's a real. I've always said that too. Where we live, there's like tons of like little restaurants, and I'm always like, how do these people how do they have enough business? How do they stay open? Or whatever. And then maybe this is like the great reset that that we need. I don't know. I mean, I feel bad for everybody out there that's going through bad times, but that's just the way of the world. Things happen, and everyone moves on. So we'll see where the cards land.
For sure. So tell me about future plans for you. What you got going on next and coming up?
Yeah, I mean, this year we're just doing the mini cup, just trying to getting the new GP2s out there. We're actually importing. We just signed on, and we're going to be importing Kyt helmets, which are big in Europe and Asia, and they are obviously really prevalent in MotoGP in the paddock. A lot of professional riders wear them in MotoGP, so bringing in Kyt helmets into America. And we also, I don't know if I'm sure you, like when you watch MotoGP, you see the riders on the grid where they're sitting on the grid and they wear these neck wraps to keep cool. They're made by RHT Cold, which is a girl in Spain, and she owns the patent for the gel that's inside. And it's a really interesting product because you don't actually need to refrigerate it or freeze it. You put it on at like ambient temp. You leave it like in the shade. You don't let it sit in the sun, but you put it on and actually cools you and dissipates heat from your body without having to refrigerate it or put it in the refrigerator.
Oh, cool.
Or the freezer. So it's actually a really, really cool product. So we're starting to sell those shortly. And obviously all the MotoGP guys use them. A lot of World Superbike guys use them. And none of them, like they all use it because like it helps them, not because she pays them any money. So, it's a cool product, and we're hopeful of that kind of, there's a lot of other applications for that. I mean, that could go into anything, any sports, anything.
Oh yeah.
So that's a cool product that we're getting involved with. And just I also do motorcycle tours in Thailand. Me and my business partner own a business over there, so we do off-road and on-road tours, usually like November, December, January-ish timeframe. So we have like a shop over there. We have our own bikes. We got a nice setup. Obviously, the pandemic has put a halt to that for a while, but we're looking forward to like the world getting back to normal so we can start up tours again. And that's just thailandmototours.com if anybody wants to check it out. But yeah, we've had like a lot of people love the tours. So if you ever want to go ride somewhere cool, that's the place to do it.
That sounds like a blast. I'm probably gonna call you one day and ask for a tour.
Yeah, dude, that's me and my business partner. That's like our real passion, like doing tours in Thailand. Like if I can do that, as much as I love, rallies and road racing, like if I could just do tours in Thailand and ride dirt bikes, I would do that all the time.
So you're on dual sports, or what kind of bikes you riding?
CRF 250Ls, because they're actually made in Thailand. So they're super easy to get parts for, maintain there and everything. And honestly, because our off-road, we use them for our on-road and off-road tours. But the off-road, we put, knobbies on it. We get them set up for off-road. But everybody kind of like, gives us an eye when we tell them what kind of bikes we're using, because most people are used to riding like KTMs or whatever. And we always say, look, just try it. Just trust us. And after a week of riding there, everybody's like, I wouldn't run and ride any other bike. Like they are just the best bikes to ride there. And they honestly do so well. Like, and we take people on every kind of terrain you can imagine, from sand to river crossings to, hill climbs. We do a little bit of everything on the tour and on the off-road tour anyways. And yeah, I mean, the bikes are just, they're really, really phenomenal, like all around good bikes. Like they work really well.
And obviously you could bring your own bike, but they're provided for you.
Well, if you wanted to ship a bike to Thailand, I guess you could. For the price, I would say no. I mean, our tour is only $2,500, so it's pretty affordable for anybody. That includes everything except your flight. Okay. So it's not a bad price. When you get in a bike and fuel and hotel and food and everything paid for that price. But yeah, it's we've had like Colin Edwards has been out with us. Letitia Klein, who's, she was big in the motorcycle industry for a while. We've had a lot of a lot of motorcycle, industry people out with us, and they all just, everybody's loved it. And yeah, that's definitely our passion for sure.
And how many days is that for that price?
It's basically it's 5 days of riding, but it's 7 days total.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty
And it's
fun.
all
And
in northern Thailand, up around Chiang Mai. So it's just a beautiful part of Thailand. People are amazing. The food's amazing. Call everything about it's just you can't beat it.
is it pretty mountainous over there, or?
Yeah, northern Thailand is really mountainous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like even the road tour. I always tell people it's basically like a supermoto track for 5 days. Like the road is just like, I mean, it's just insane.
All over the place.
But,
Wow.
it's hard. Like if you think of like the tail of the dragon, but like for 5 days straight. So
And everybody's in the middle of the road honking, going all over the place.
yeah, it gets kind of wild. Yeah, we always have to give people a little stern talking to at the start of every tour, like, hey, this is the do's and don'ts of riding in Thailand, because it's definitely a shocker for some people that aren't used to it. It's you got to kind of work your way into it.
Yeah, you got to flow with traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not America. You can't just do what you want.
Right, exactly.
So you've already said a few things, but where are you online? Where can people find Rise Moto and Ovale and Thailand tours and all that stuff?
Just risemoto.com for all of our stuff related to Ovale or KYT or RHT Cold, and then thailandmototours.com for the tours. And you can look us up on Instagram too, Ovale USA on Instagram and Thailand Moto Tours on Instagram.
Okay. Are you on YouTube? Are you a big YouTuber?
No, I just honestly, it's not because I don't want to. It's just I barely have time to do anything, and there's so many things I want to do, like for the business and for Avali, and just doing like cool creative things to help the brand and help promote things and to give like informational stuff to customers. But I just don't have the time in the day to do it right now. And but that's definitely on the list. That's high on the list of things I want to eventually like get involved with, is having like an Avali YouTube channel where we can like really dive into like, maintenance tips, setup tips, just all kinds of things, all Avali related, I think that's one thing we're definitely missing. But it's obviously that's super time consuming and I just don't have the time.
You can always hire it out, a videographer and a guy interested in motorcycles,
I wish I could. I just don't have any. I've barely made any money in the past 3 years, so there's a fine line between like I just keep spending money and not being able to make anything.
Or maybe we'll find someone who wants to do it on volunteer from watching this.
Right. Yeah. If anyone wants to volunteer and do some stuff, you hit me up.
Help grow the sport, right?
Yep.
So I think I'll be getting back into track days in a couple of years, maybe
Cool.
2023, 2 years, maybe midsummer. We'll see.
Oh, cool.
So just trying to save my money and make some money right now with Eric Swahn Racing before I start spending it again.
Yeah, I still do some track days here, and I still enjoy riding on the track, but that's about it for me. I just do maybe like when the season's around, I probably do like one track day a month, just to like. I still love riding, but that's enough for me.
Any particular track, or just do your home track?
Summit Point's my home track, and it's only like an hour and 45 minutes from my house, and they have a lot of Monday track days there.
Okay.
So like I probably hit up every Monday track day that they have, just because it's easier for me to, to do that than it is go on a weekend. So I just pop off on a Monday sometimes and go down there, and that's like out of all the track. I mean, honestly, I've ridden a lot of tracks around the world, obviously, and some reason I like love Summit Point. I don't know why. I just like for me it's just such a fun track, so I never get tired of going there and ripping some laps like on occasion.
So is there a particular track you're best at? Some people are good at like hard braking zones or fast flowy corners, or like, is there a particular set of circumstances you like?
I've never really liked tracks that are like, point and shoot type tracks. I've always liked tracks that are more flowy, like Suzuka, for example, was just one of the most like flowy tracks I've ever ridden.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I went really well there and I really liked it. Like point and shoot type tracks, I just never really enjoyed. But yeah, I mean, I've over the years, I've gotten better at like just being able to ride any type of track. But I definitely enjoy like more flowy tracks where you're like connecting things, and tracks that have actually like New Jersey, I hate because it's just like flat for the most part. I like tracks with some natural elevation to them, and just like they seem more like they're flowy and natural than like purpose built. Like, oh, we just put this here and it's just like a track, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't fit in with the landscape.
Right, right.
Now, Suzuka seems like one of the most difficult tracks that there are, just because of how there's not really many right-handed or 90-degree turns there. It's very like spoon curve. It's difficult. It's not like a typical turn.
Yeah, it was one of the hardest tracks I ever had to learn. Knowing going into it that I had to like obviously race with the best riders in the world and qualify and all that stuff. I was nervous going into it because I know for a fact it's one of the hardest ones to learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely that was a tough one. That's why like I flew over early to do a test there like a month before the race, and so I'm glad I did, and I wound up doing a decent respectable time. I got down to like a 14, and which wasn't bad. The most like the top-ish teams except for like the factory like GP guys, they're doing like 208s, 210s, like in that range. But then you had like Alex Lowe's and Vandermark and all those guys. They were like, I think like the lap record there on qualifying tires is like a 204
Oh
or
wow.
203,
Yeah.
but the like race pace and endurance, that was like a 206 for those guys. So, I was pretty happy with what I did there, in terms of like my qualifying time and my race pace. But it's just that track is wild. I've never ridden a track with so much grip. Like you could just, it was unbelievable how much grip there was. And I did a couple laps in the rain there too, and I had never it was like easy knee on the deck in the rain, like not even like it wasn't like, oh, I'm kind of feeling it out. There was no issues of grip at all.
Yeah.
So then dry, it was just like, you could just bury the front brake and the front tire into turns, and you could just really push the front. It was pretty crazy riding there. It was a different experience.
But then you got to come in for tires sooner, right?
Yeah, they definitely wore the tires out there, but they're only like, the Japanese Bridgestones and the Japanese made Dunlops, like those are the tires that like worked there. Like they were like, easily worth, I know the factory teams got like special Bridgestones, and they were worth like, for qualifying, for example, when they did like a 203, they were worth like 2 seconds a lap.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's significant.
Bro, yeah, it wasn't a small change. It was like huge.
Well, and also the longer the track, the bigger the gain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it was like a 2-minute plus lap time. So obviously it's a fairly long track. So, being, that much off, 10 seconds off like the lap record, like isn't that bad.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and we talked about MotoGP a little bit with the Ovale. Is there any World Superbike interests?
Well, Dorna owns World Superbike now, so it's kind of like all kind of mixed
All
together.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll get some in the World Superbike stage.
Yeah,
too.
maybe they'll get involved with that. Yeah, for sure.
So, so kind of wrapping things up here, approaching our hour. Is there any other parting words you have for people?
No, man, I just appreciate all the support that everybody's given to us. If you're interested in a volley, hit us up, or a tour. But yeah, we get a lot of kind words from people about like what we're doing for the sport and everything. So that's always appreciated. And thanks for having me on, and thanks to everybody for supporting what we do.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad to have you on here and talk for about an hour or so. And I'll get this posted and edited and posted in about a week or two. And make sure we tag everybody we talked about and share it so we can get as many eyeballs on it as possible.
Cool. Will do, man.
All right. Well, have a great day, man, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Eric. See
All
you.
right. Bye-bye.